listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft for people who play it. Today is December 28th, 2021, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how have you been over these holidays?
Well, Spencer, hello. A very happy Wintervale to you. And here we are, our last show of 2021.
I know.
So, I'm on vacation this week, but I have two little ones, so it's like a crazy time. Even though I'm on vacation, I'm not really relaxing or taking proper care of myself.
Yes.
But that's part of the thing, and that's part of why I always try to take this week off, is because of whatever might come up, and just giving the kids some room to break routines and do something fun. So it's obviously 2021 in a broad context has been rough. We live in sort of a rough era. Right now things are looking a little grim, even by recent standards. But I think, for me personally, for my family, 2021's been good. I think it's been a good year for the show, and I think our listeners and people who have contributed to Patreon or contributed just like stuff to the show via Discord, via emails, via even iTunes reviews, whatever. It's really been a weird year for WoW, to say the least. We sort of exited 2020 with the Shadowlands honeymoon, and then we come into 2021 and it kind of nosedives quickly, and then sentiment really turns against the game. I would say fast. 9.1 does very little to make it, most people feel better about the state of the game. And then you have the whole, the lawsuit from California DFEH against Blizzard and all these other revelations about the conditions at the company, the way they treat people, specifically marginalized people. And, also just broader context about the way labor gets treated across Activision Blizzard companies and studios, across the industry in general. It has been, it's sometimes you kind of take a step back and you think about it, and it's like, should I even be doing this, what I do, when it comes to how I engage with this game and doing a show like this about the game. But I think a big part of it for me was just the conversations that we have had with our audience. It convinces me that is the right thing to do, to try to be even-handed about about these things and try to draw attention to these issues as best we can. And I really do appreciate everybody who dropped us a line this year to let us know what they thought about what was going on in the show, or to bring something to the table for us to talk about, or just to say hi and let us know you're out there. It means a lot. It is the reason why we do the show. So I do think, despite the game and the company that makes the game being in sort of just a maelstrom of terrible news and sentiment this year, that I don't want to say we were immune to it necessarily, but I think we had as a show and a show built around a community, I think it was a good year for us in terms of like assessing what we like and don't like about the game, and just having these conversations with each other. So I do really appreciate that.
Yeah. It has been quite the year this past year. I ended up in 3 different guilds in this past year, which has been a little weird for the Mythic raiding scene. That's incredibly unique. Like, basically, up until this year, I'd basically only been in maybe 4 or 5 guilds total in my WoW career. So to then go through 3 in 1 year was a little bit bizarre. I was in Polaris, and that fell apart in January 2021, and I went from there to Ad Hoc, and then Ad Hoc collapsed, and so we went from Ad Hoc to Vigil, and Vigil didn't work out, and so I went from Vigil to Skill Issue, and then there I am. So it's been a bit intense for me as far as WoW experience goes, and I think that's also been reflected with what's been going on with the game itself, with people leaving and joining, and a lot of really large instability both inside of the game and out for the company. So It's been quite the year, man. Oh man, 2021. I'm looking forward to 2022. I got to say that, because at least in 2022 we get we got hopefully the final patch of this expansion, and then we get hopefully next expansion as well within the same year. And so it's going to be a
hopefully,
you know,
fingers crossed,
big exciting time for World of Warcraft. And hopefully that next expansion really skyrockets the game back into people's favor. So that's sort of what we're looking at.
I think we got reasons to be optimistic about the future. I think, at least in terms of WoW, in terms of stuff outside of WoW, you know, we'll take a wait and see on that. But
yeah,
you know, I definitely think 9.2 is exciting. You know, the stuff we've seen so far is exciting. It's always cool to have that kind of big last content update, you know, come into an expansion. And I guess we technically have no reason not to be optimistic about next expansion releasing in 2022. And if they're taking the lessons of 9.15 and 9.2 forward into next expansion and beyond, I think it bodes well for us as players. So I'm with you. Hopefully we're justified in our optimism.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, this past week in World of Warcraft, I didn't get up to much. We did our final, our first boss, last two boss raid, which was a sale run for gold, which was great, to make sure we got that in. But then we're taking this week off entirely. There is nothing happening raid-wise this week, which is exciting. And similarly, Blizzard is sort of doing the same thing. They're taking end of last week. I think the 23rd or 24th was the last day for Blizz employees before the shutdown happens. And then they were shut down this entire week, which means that there isn't a ton of news to talk about this week on the show. So we'll be spending our time covering some of the mailbag stuff that we have for the end of the year to make sure we get all caught up on that, which is great. But also just, you know, I guess there'll be some moments where we, as Jason did at the top of the show here, go through memories of this past year and you know what we sort of are looking forward to coming up next year. So we'll get into that a little bit. But Jason, before we do, this past week in World of Warcraft, what'd you get up to?
Well, it was kind of a light week, as you might imagine, but actually a heavier raiding week for me than the previous couple, because I actually raided 2 nights and ended up doing my first heroic Sanctum full clear in a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. I think I was missing days because I had other stuff going on. So it was fun. I mean, we had a bit of a smaller crew, as you might imagine, but, you know, back in the day, I always loved 10-man raiding. When they made the 10 and 25 split in Wrath of the Lich King, where it's like, it's the same content, you can, you know, it's the same bosses. Because before that, it was like, this is a 10-man raid. This is a 25-man raid. This content is different based on your group size. In Wrath, it went the other way, where it's like, okay, this raid exists. You can go in with a 10-player group or a 25-player group. I always liked the 10-player groups because it was tight-knit and it's just less noisy. You know, everybody has sort of a more dedicated role to play.
Yeah.
We had about like 14 last week or something, so it wasn't like we were on a complete skeleton crew, but it was, you know, we had a couple key subtractions, a couple of people that are usually like rock solid attendees. Obviously they had stuff going on. So, you know, we had to kind of have people step outside of their comfort zone to do some mechanics, which that can be fun too. I mean, we didn't have any huge problems with the reclear, so it was fun. I still don't have the shoulders from Heroic Sylvanas though, even post vault and everything. Like I don't know. I've been shooting for him since July the raid came out or something. So still missing. I'm somehow still missing a piece from Heroic SOD, but I mean, raid was fun. I think it's a pretty fun raid to reclear generally. Didn't get much Mythic Plus in. Our dungeon roster was really depleted. I did get one done just to have one complete for the week, but it wasn't a plus 20 in time that I needed for portals. And then I think what happened Wednesday was we finished up raid a bit early because we only had 2 bosses left, right? Or yeah, I think we had 2 bosses left. We went to try to do a dungeon. We kind of horribly biffed the first boss and then just said, you know what, let's just call it a night. Like, we're not going to slog through this for the next 45 minutes for no real reward. And we're definitely not going to get additional dungeons in to get, you know, 4 done for the week for extra vault choices. So let's just cut our losses and go enjoy the holiday season. So that's kind of what we did. I think in previous years I would have felt a lot differently about that, but with the way Shadowlands meta progression works and just, you know, at my relative like age and maturity level, I'm okay with just, walking away and exploring something else with my brain. Actually, today I logged in to prep the show, and I went and opened my Wintervale presents. I hadn't done that.
Oh yeah.
Which a lot of times, there've been years where it's like I'm in Ironforge waiting for them to turn the presents on.
Yeah.
Not lately, but I feel good about it, actually. Like I feel like I'm spending an appropriate amount of time in WoW. When I'm playing WoW, I'm enjoying doing multiplayer content with my friends. And if I want to do solo content or whatever, then I have the flexibility to do it if I want to, and I just mostly don't want to. So I'm enjoying having that kind of routine for now until new stuff comes out. I'll probably ramp up a ton until I get everything unlocked in the new content, and then I'll be probably back on the schedule. And like reflecting on it, I think it's just healthier overall for my life, for my brain, for my gaming diet, for my personal relationships, than maybe some of the stuff I was doing in Legion and BFA, where it was like the AP grind never stops. And even if I'm not benefiting from it, I still want to be doing it. I kind of have lamented the lack of that in Shadowlands, but I think it's better for my overall life as time goes on.
It's definitely I've always talked about the period of time where I took a break from World of Warcraft. The longest break I took, it was like 3.5 months or something like that. In that period of time, I found the job that I'm currently in, and I met my wife during that period of time.
Mm-hmm,
and
right.
It's one of those cases where you're like, oh, well, what do you know? You cut back on that thing that you spend 3.5 to 4 hours a day at least playing, and you take that 3.5 and 4 hours a day and you put it towards something else, and all of a sudden, you can actually accomplish a lot in your day. And there is a certain amount of balance and health that happens. And I, like you, I did a very large grind in BFA. And I really, really enjoyed, it felt satisfying doing that grind. Like the enjoyment for me was the satisfaction of doing it regularly. And, but I did notice a lot of like personality things kick in during that expansion of like feeling, like I was, feeling like I should punish myself for not doing it regularly, as if I had let myself down if I didn't accomplish this, or if I missed out on something.
You're failing your meta goal by missing a reset or a day's worth of AP farm.
Right, exactly. And so that to me was something where looking back on and recognizing wasn't the healthiest mentality to be in. As much as I found that satisfying and enjoyable, it was also not necessarily the healthiest state to be in for my life. And so, yes, I've also enjoyed the slight, the more downtime with World of Warcraft lately. I haven't enjoyed that the content is the reason why that is happening. But it has pushed me to a point where I've recognized, like we talked about the previous week, when my raid team was asking about, hey, do you want to do split runs and everyone levels an alt and do that kind of stuff? And I was like, actually, I don't think that's something that I want to commit the time into managing and doing. That was a decision that came from me learning those lessons from BFA and recognizing that I need to be in a healthier mental state with this expansion and going forward with World of Warcraft, and that doesn't contribute to that mental state for me. So I think it's overall been good, and it's been a lot of learning lessons. I just wish it wasn't because the content is not super desirable to do at the moment. So I'm looking forward to there being much more desirable content in there, and there being something where when I log in, I'm like, yeah, I get to log in and do this and do that and do, there are exciting things to log into the game for at the moment. They just aren't high enough on the priority list of what I need to do in my current life for me to be like, yes, over this vacation, I'm going to binge World of Warcraft. Right now, over my vacation, it's like, hey, there's family to visit and there's a pandemic happening, and I just got my booster yesterday, so I'm a little loopy today because I'm not feeling great from it. There's just a lot of real life stuff that's pulling on me at the moment. So I recognize that my game time and my downtime isn't spent playing World of Warcraft the way that it normally is. It's still there as a game. I still play it. Still log in and do my mission state table. Still try and get a Mythic Plus dungeon in for the week. Still do the raid when the raids are happening. We're just starting to ramp up right now into studying for the bosses, because obviously with raid testing sort of shutting down over this break, there's been a lot of data that's sort of been pulled together about these bosses and what they do and how they work. And We've been looking over that and starting to put together strats for that. We have people who are deciding whether or not they're swapping mains. All that stuff's happening with the team. There's still a lot happening around the game right now for me. It's just not there isn't a daily loop where I'm like, yes, my daily loop is something I feel like I should log in for and that I enjoy logging in to do. It's sort of like I log in for very activity driven specific things as opposed to here's my normal routine. There just isn't a normal routine at the moment. So I'm
in the same boat. And like, it's the first time in a long time that I've kind of been in that spot, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think it's actually good because you have that kind of ebb and flow where it's like when new stuff comes out, you know, you're going to hit it really hard and it's going to be at the forefront of your brain and it's going to be where you want to spend your downtime, you know, from your real life responsibilities. And eventually that's going to ebb, you know, you're going to check that stuff off the list and then that list is going to get short and then it's going to get completed or more or less completed. So I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. I do think from like a game design perspective, there's probably a happy medium between like BFA, I'm logging in every 6 hours to clear AP and that makes me feel good because the bar goes up, versus Shadowlands, you know, where, okay, after the initial 4 to 6 weeks of patch, then I'm only logging in at scheduled times to play with other people to do PvE, you know, dungeons and raids. You know, I mean, we do have like weeklies and stuff. I think weeklies are a good space to explore for that kind of thing. But because of the like progression structures in Shadowlands, like I don't care about doing the weeklies right now. They don't provide any kind of real benefit to me. So I just haven't been doing them. You know, I don't need anima. I don't need any of the other currencies or anything they reward. I'm not shooting for anything else. So I think, you know, that's what I would kind of like to see for whatever the next expansion brings is some sort of middle ground between those two, what feel like extreme cases where it's like I'm playing WoW for 4 hours a day versus I'm playing WoW for 4 hours a week. You know, like I don't know what it looks like. I'm not a game designer, but I think, you know, if I could have my preference, it would be something like that, where like it feels really good to get in like a couple hours of weekly stuff on a character a week. And then other than that, you're kind of just logging in for raid times and stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious. It's moments like it's the end of the year like this that makes me wonder these questions of what the stats they can pull from the game are. And I think one of the stats would be interesting to see for Shadowlands versus other expansions is the amount of mounts, pets, you know, cosmetics put into the game versus the amount of people who've earned them percentage-wise, right? So, like, they added this many during Warlords, and this many people got all of them, or got this percentage of them, and they added this many of them inside BFA, and this many people got... So I feel like Shadowlands is going to be an expansion where they put in the most art as far as cosmetics and mounts and pets and all that kind of stuff goes, with the least amount of people who actually managed to get a percentage of them. I think that would be a very interesting... thing to look at, but it feels that way with this expansion because it does feel like this expansion in general, they put a ton of effort into making sure that there's something for everyone to do when they want to play the game, as far as everything from people who really like sort of more casual content, just sort of logging in, not necessarily raiding, but just for collecting, that kind of purpose, those kinds of purposes, right up to the Mythic Raider. They tried to sort of address everyone's needs there. But the content hasn't been compelling enough to really drive people to actually do a lot of those activities. I mean, there's definitely some people out there who are still collecting everything and are still, you know, pushing for those goals, and that's great. I just feel like there's fewer people doing that than we've seen in previous expansions. So, yeah, I'd be curious. At some point, I'd love to sit down and see. I'm sure they have an in-house design program that pulls all their stats. I'd love to sit down and generate some infographics, because I love the infographics they used to put out ages ago, and I want more of those. I find it so interesting. Yeah,
that would actually be that would be enlightening to see, you know, what, you know, within a covenant or something, like how much of this stuff has been collected by people that play it or whatever. Yeah, because it's definitely been a big shift this game, right? People didn't want to hear about, you know, we want AP gone. We don't want to be compelled to do the thing we were just talking about, which is like putting a lot of time into a very gradual character power progression system. So they scrapped that and they just went, everything is cosmetics basically. Like you do have these things you need to pursue for power, in 9.0, notably like conduits and legendaries, and they are time commitments to get them maxed out for sure, and you have to jump through very particular hoops to do so. And in 9.1, you have Archivist Codex and stuff. There are some systems that provide it's not to the degree of character power that we see with these other things, but it's still time investment for gradual character power, or at least options like feature unlocks and stuff. And beyond that, it's not this kind of daily drumbeat of like how much gradual character power can I collect today. It's all about like, hey, bank up all of these currencies and then you can buy all these cosmetics. For me, that kind of stuff just it doesn't hold up, because I have to really like the cosmetics.
Well, it's either
like if they don't speak to me, I don't want them. I don't collect them just to have them.
Yeah, I definitely collect some things just to have them, especially as a druid where you just use travel form the majority of the time. But I collect mounts. Like, it's weird that way.
Yeah.
But the two motivators that get me to do it is either it looks really cool, so I really want one, or it's only available for a very limited time, so you have to get it now or you can't get it again. Those are the two things that get me in to absolutely having to have a cosmetic, for sure. Without those, I definitely don't jump into that pool as much. And even with the Legion time walking with Mage Tower, I haven't pushed on all of the different characters I was considering pushing on to try and get all those rewards. And a lot of that just came down to, it'll be around again. Like, I got these ones that I kind of was looking to get, and it'll be around again. I'll pick it up later. Like, there isn't, like, even though it was extended in time and everything else, I was like, well, we're going to have more Legion time walking, and the rewards aren't changing. It's going to be this for years. So, feel free.
It's part of the game now.
Yeah. So I feel like the motivation of something being limited, you have to be there now to get the reward, is definitely my largest motivator when it comes to any game, really. Like a lot of games out there. Overwatch right now is doing their holiday skin rewards thing that they did, where each week over the holidays they were putting out a new character with skins or new character skins with sprays and that kind of stuff. And if you don't play the game now, you just don't get them. And so there was that got me motivated. There's a bunch of different games that get me motivated like that. So that is my Achilles heel of, you want me to do something, only give it to me for a limited time, and I'll suddenly feel like I gotta just put the time in now. I'll regret it later.
Some kind of prestige element, right? And a lot of the stuff in Shadowlands, for example, there is no prestige element. Like, you get hundreds of cosmetics from just vendors on your Covenant and getting renown and collecting anima and buying that stuff. But I mean, as far as we know, it's just going to be things that you do forever. It's not like it's tied specifically to this expansion's lifespan or anything like that. So there's no real urgency and there's no real prestige. It's not like a Mage Tower reward. Like that's the opposite of what they've kind of seeded all over this expansion. So I'm pretty much with you. Even if I don't like the way something looks, if there's some prestige element to having earned it, then it's a bit more attractive to me. Like even in 9.1, right, there was the achievement for getting flawless runs on all the Torghast wings.
Right.
And you got a spectral horse type of mount for doing that. And not really the kind of mount I would really use on my character. It's not my aesthetic. But I still wanted to get that achievement just to, show off that I had done it. I had kind of mastered that system in 9.1. And, I also got this achievement and mount as a reward for it. Like, I think that stuff works regardless of the aesthetics, in terms of being a motivator versus, hey, just grab a bunch of currency and then you can buy a shoulder mog in 4 different colors over the next 2 years.
Right. No. Okay. With that, let's jump into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week, Legion Time Walking continues, as we all know, although it is the last week for Legion Time Walking, as far as we know at time of this episode. Jason has been speculating they might extend it longer, hoping that they might extend it longer. I'm with you. I think that, again, they should take time walking onto its own entirely different thing. But when it comes to Legion time walking and Mage Tower, I would love if they just went, yeah, you know what? This is just staying up for the rest of this patch. When the next patch comes out, we'll reassess what we're doing with time walking. And it won't be on every 4-month rotation that we see Legion time walking. It'll be something better than that. So that would be good. It might actually be longer than that. It might be every 6 months if they if they're actually sticking to the time walking schedule.
Right.
However, it's also Burning Crusade time walking week. That's right, it's double time walking. So we knew this was coming. We have the Sign of the Twisting Nether up, where Burning Crusade reputations from combat and quests are increased by 50%. And characters 50 and above can do Arcatraz, Black Morass, Magister's Terrace, Mana Tomb, Shattered Halls, and Slave Pen dungeons. And if you complete 5 of them, you get yourself a piece of normal Sanctum gear. And there's also Black Temple time walking up, where groups that are 10 to 30 players can queue in and get 226 eye level gear for max level characters, as well as the unlockable Warglaives of Azeroth transmog. If you have the Warglaives of Azeroth already, you get in there and you get the Warglaive transmog for defeating Illidan on time walking. Overall, I mean, double time walking week is cool. I neither of these time walking weeks now are like super new and inspired for us. It's something we've seen many times. But last week, for example, with a double reputation for Legion stuff was pretty huge. This week, if you're someone who is trying to get yourself some Burning Crusade reps up because you're in that rep grind mood, then feel free to go back and crank that out. Otherwise, last week for Mage Tower, as far as we know, so be sure taking advantage of that. And also, along with Legion time walking, you can do those time walking versions of Legion dungeons, the Blackrock Hold, Court of Stars, Darkheart Thicket, Eye of Ashara, Nell Slayer, and Vault of Wardens. And you do 5 of those, and again, another piece of normal Sanctum gear. So this week you can get 2 pieces of normal Sanctum gear just for running 10 time walking dungeons. Just be sure you run 5 Burning Crusade and then 5 Legion, and pick up both quests in Ouroboros.
That's a pretty good deal, actually. 2 pieces of Sanctum gear for doing, 10 dungeons is going to take you a couple hours.
Yeah.
But I do love Burning Crusade time walking. Like, I think the dungeons are just super great to run through. They were like the first expansion dungeons, right? These were the dungeons that were made with the knowledge of what worked and didn't work about the vanilla dungeons. And, obviously dungeon design has progressed from there, but I really like these. And I think they're a great run. Even if you don't really know how to play your character, at level 50 and you're trying to level up or something, or, you leveled the character to max and you want to do something with it, but you don't really feel confident in, most end game scenarios. Burning Crusade time walking tends to be pretty forgiving. So, they're really fun. Black Temple time walking is pretty good. If your raid team is, people are, on holiday for the end of the year or whatever, looking for something to do, want to play together, Black Temple time walking is a fun change of pace. And I hope they leave Legion time walking up longer. I hope they get back into the office on Monday and we get some blue text in the afternoon that we're just going to leave it on at least until patch. Even if it's just like you kind of alluded to, even if it's just Keystones and Mage Tower, because I think from what I've seen, I see people doing it. I see people interested in it. It makes people want to play the game. So that's not something we could really say for most of the last year. I don't think it makes any sense to shut it off. The game isn't gaining anything by having this stuff go away and come back in April or whenever it's scheduled to come back. So we'll see. But hopefully, they've been breaking a lot of their own rules lately, and maybe this will be another one that we see another domino falls here. Because I think they should just leave up those 2 features all the time. Regardless of whatever is happening with the weekly event rotation, you should be able to go do the Mage Tower whenever you want to. I mean, why not? We've discussed this at length over the last few weeks as it's been out, but especially it is still pretty hard, and they've tuned it, but they didn't really hit it with a huge nerf bat. So
yeah, not as much as I thought. I expected there to be some substantial nerfs before this break happened, and they've been very cautious about how much they wanted to play with the difficulty of it. So I was pretty surprised overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you want to get these done, it's still the best idea is to go collect a weird kind of smattering of gear from old expansions and stuff. And I mean, that's a time commitment in and of itself, right? Just to get prepared to do it. So But I think that's valuable too. I think all that adds value to the game. It's not like a sideshow. This is part of WoW. Like it should just be there. So I don't know. I'm just trying to put some good vibes out into the universe that maybe this gets extended. But you should if you are gunning for Mage Tower stuff or something specific from Legion Time Walking, I wouldn't recommend assuming it's going to get extended. Like play like this week is your last week for a while, and get whatever you need to get done, in there this week because. As far as we know, it's going to get shut off at reset, and then you'll be waiting months for it to come back.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we also have the world bosses this week of Valinor, the Light of Eons, the Big Colossus, and Bastion. Dropping yourself some 200 eye-level Covenant ability conduits, as well as your 207 eye-level gear. We have Morgeth, the Tormentor of the Damned, the Big Mosswort, and Desmateron, both of which drop in 500 anima, as well as... some good rewards. So if you're looking for some gear, be sure you're going out and killing those bosses. And Valinor drops which memories if you're looking to pick up some legendary memories, Jason?
So priests, paladins, and shaman are going to want to make sure that if you don't have all your legendary powers, you get out there for Valinor this week because you get Archbishop Benedictus for priests, Final Verdict for paladins, and Windspeaker's Lava Resurgence for shaman. You got to get your res pants right if you if you play priest, if you do healy things on a priest, that's a very powerful and popular effect. So if you got a priest, a paladin, or a shaman, don't forget about Valinor this week if you need those powers still.
Yeah. We have Torghast happening this week with Skoldus Hall and Mort Regar, but we have the Unbridled Darkness event happening. Jason, what can you tell me about this Unbridled Darkness event?
This is wacky time, is what I can tell you about it. This is where it's first. Well, I guess it's because this reset includes the first day of the month or something. It's one of these rotating events, which means that your first power, you have a chance to essentially opt into the event, right? You can ignore this and just do what you're doing, but if you opt in, you take either the vial or the flask of Unbridled Darkness, and what that does is you can't see anything, but you do 75% more damage and have 30% increased movement speed. So this is, if you want something really wacky to do in Torghast, you can go with this. I have never tried it, to be honest. I'm pretty sure the utter darkness plus 30% movement speed would mean that I was constantly falling off platforms to my death.
Yeah.
And we have Mortregar this week too. So Mortregar has a lot of places where you can fall to your death. Skoldus Hall, it might be a little bit safer.
I mean, the traps could still get you too, though. It's dangerous all around for sure.
It's fun. It adds a lot of texture to Torghast. The buff is substantial, as you can see, but it adds a very difficult wrinkle of gameplay here. So, I feel like this is the kind of thing that's been underutilized in Torghast a bit. When they pitched this Torghast at BlizzCon 19, they mentioned that there was going to be these rotating events and stuff, and what it turns out is there's a 3-event rotation or 4-event rotation off the top of my head. I can't think, but it's 1 week a month you have one of these events in rotation. It's cool, but I feel like it's kind of a missed opportunity. I want more stuff like this. You could have something like this every week, every other week. You could have more events in the rotation and just mix up the gameplay more. Torghast is obviously controversial. Most people really just seem to dislike it, which I understand, but I also feel like there's a lot of cool elements of Torghast, and it's sort of a story of unrealized potential, and the event rotation is part of that.
Yeah, unrealized potential is probably the best way to describe it as far as I'm concerned. It's such a cool idea. It's such a neat concept, and adding in these events makes it even neater and more spicy. And I'm with you that I feel like there could have been multiple events running at the same time, or every week there's a different event, or come up with 8 kind of ideas. What I'm thinking, do the same thing you do with Mythic Plus affixes, where you just come up with a bunch of them and have them really rotate through, so people can take advantage. Especially right now, where a lot of people are running Torghast to grind out renown or to get enough to get their legendaries, and they're all sort of preparing for the next chunk of content. You have an opportunity here where you're it could be the easy week or the, easy week for these classes, or the whatever it is based off of the event that's happening, and people taking advantage of that or having fun with that. Again, I talk about limited time, rewards or advantages that you can get inside the game that motivate people to log in and do things. Like last week, I talked about it being that Legion reputation. If you needed Paragon bags from Legion, last week was insane. People were getting like 10,000 rep a day easily. Similar thing with Torghast would be kind of neat, where it's, hey, this event's happening right now. This event is really, makes Torghast very easy and kind of cool. Take advantage of it this week. That would be I'd love to be saying that on this show. So I want them to add more things like that into the game, where it becomes this is the week where we go and do this thing that I don't normally spend my time doing because there's an advantage to doing it this week. That's where they sort of started to go with stuff like time walking, where doing 5 dungeons gets you a piece of normal dungeon gear. That's not enticing enough for a lot of players. So I'd like to see some more enticing things motivating players to be like, yeah, I got to get on this week to do this thing that's very cool or easy, or this thing I dislike doing but is actually kind of fun when they throw this twist on it. I would like to see that change too.
The thing too is just one more thought on that is that because of the way it works, where you have to like select the power among your first selection of powers, and it doesn't even like overwrite your first power selection. It's an additional choice. Like it's totally opt in. So it's not like Torghast sucks this week because the event's going on. Well, you just ignore it if you want to. So I think that's even more ammunition for the pool should be mixed up more. We should have more different types of events, and they should occur more frequently, because if you hate them, but you're doing Torghast, you just ignore them.
Yeah, agreed. All right, as far as dungeons go, you want to pick up your The Other Side or Mists of Tyrannosaith quests inside Oribos. If you're running those dungeons this week, you'll get those bonus reputation rewards. And then as far as PvP quests go, you want to pick up your rated BGs and random BGs if you're going to be running some BGs this week. Whether they're rated or random, you can get some additional rewards if you pick up those quests before you go and do it. Now, Mythic Plus wise, we have Fortified, Inspiring, and Grievous, meaning that non-boss enemies have 20% more health and inflict 30% increased damage. Some non-boss enemies have an Inspiring Presence that strengthens their allies, and injured players suffer increasing damage over time until healed. So Inspiring is one mob makes all the mobs around them not able to be CC'd, stunned, or interrupted at all. So the Inspiring mob itself can still be, provided the mob type fits, interrupted, stunned, or CC'd. And so typically the strategy is to CC that Inspiring mob, drag the other mobs away from it, so that they are not affected by that, and then defeat the group, and then defeat the Inspiring mob. There are still people who will just plan out, hey, here's all of our DPS cooldowns, let's just blow this pack up before they get their casts off and wreck us. That is another strategy that some groups do, so decide which works best for you, but just keep in mind that you can CC that Inspiring mob, and or at least keep it away, tank it away from the other mobs, and you are able to actually CC and interrupt the important mobs in every pack. Grievous is basically just a healer problem, right? It's players just take damage and then they get a debuff, and that debuff continues to stack and increases more damage on them. Not true. It's not just a healer problem, it's everyone's problem. Grievous you can remove stacks of by simply casting a direct target heal on yourself. If I regrowth myself while I have a Grievous stack, even if I'm a Boomkin, it will remove a Grievous stack from me. Getting myself over 90% removes all of them, but helping your healers out is a big deal. Use your health pots. Don't be afraid to stop and throw a heal on yourself just to make their job a little bit easier throughout the dungeon, so Grievous isn't as bad as it could be. And with Fortified, it's going to be pretty bad, because that 30% increased damage you're going to feel on all those AoE abilities. Whenever, a mob, say you're running to the other side because it's a dungeon quest this week, and you got those Ragers who just start pulsing AoE damage, everyone's going to have Grievous stacks during those things. So be sure you're taking the time to not only burn that mob down, because it does have to die quickly, but throw, at least one heal on yourself during it, so that you actually are helping your healer out, reducing those Grievous stacks, getting your health back up a little bit faster and easier to make this not quite as impactful as it could be, because Fortified can hurt with Grievous.
Yeah, this is not a great week. We had a couple pretty good combos the last few weeks. This week, I think, it's a little more punishing, especially as you start to get into that 15 plus range, like where you start getting to the keystone ranks that you really want to push for achievements, prestige, feature unlocks. Fort Inspiring is just not something you can ignore. You have to be deliberate with some pulls. You are going to have situations, if you do enough dungeons this week, where you do have to like CC the inspired mob and pull away from it or something. I think of even something that people would consider like an easy dungeon, like Mists of Tyrnacythe, right? It's a weekly quest too. You have that maze sequence, and in the maze, you're frequently going to encounter like 5 pulls with casters that do really devastating stuff, either huge heals, like AoE heals, or knock you away and root you. These are really bad, and you cannot really successfully plan to kill these packs on, higher difficulties by just going in head first and everybody hits all their buttons and you hope for the best. Like you have to do this deliberately in order to succeed. So it is tricky. Like you do have counterplay because of the CC. Grievous, the change to Grievous where like you were just talking about, where direct heals remove stacks, adds really great counterplay to Grievous. Grievous used to be really punishing. It still is punishing, but you can play around it, which you couldn't before as much, right? Before, playing around it just meant like kite stuff and don't take any damage until the healer can catch you up. That's not always really a reasonable game plan. So the direct heal thing is big. And yeah, if you have like Gift of the Naru or something, keep that in mind when if you see you have a Grievous stack or two, hit yourself with something. If you can heal yourself in some way, it really makes a huge difference compared to the way Grievous used to work. So, yeah, definitely a tougher week. Like if you're pushing for fortified points, this isn't the week where it's like, all right, round everybody up. We're doing 10, 12 keys this week. I don't think you're going to want to do that, but you can be successful if you pull deliberately through the dungeon. There's not real. The good thing is there's not real punishing like on death effects, right? So yeah, if you got cooldowns up or whatever, you can just like single target that inspired mob down on a particular pack, and also some dungeons really inspiring's not as big a deal in some dungeons as others. It depends on your route and which particular mobs are inspired and all that. In some dungeons you barely notice it, to be honest, and some of them it can totally shut you down in combat. So it's just you got to bring that dungeon knowledge. You got to have a plan and you got to work together. And yeah, like you said, Grievous isn't just a healer problem. Think about your whole toolkit. Think about all the abilities that you have. Think about timing on using those abilities. That's the cool thing about like a week like this that is more challenging. It has so many vectors where like you can, your class choice might come into play, your spec choice might come into play, your racial choice might come into play, your covenant choice might come into play, your overall, and then multiply that by 5 because your overall group comp. And these are ways that you can gain advantages against, the challenging elements of this week. So to me, that's what's always interesting about the Mythic Plus system week in and week out, is like, how do we do this to the best of our ability? How do we make the correct choices moment to moment inside of here? That's what makes the system really fun and enduring over the years. And man, you got a lot of opportunity for that this week, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a curious week for people who are running keys. I'm curious what you guys feel like you can accomplish this week. It's just unattractive to me, to be honest. I look at this one and I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not gonna be losing sleep if I don't get any new +20s this week.
That's kind of where I'm at too. All right. Feast of Wintervale is still running. It's going to end on the 2nd of January. So be sure you are going and picking up your toys from underneath the tree this year. Actually, I don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it for everyone. It is cool. I'll say it's customization. So there's choice involved, which is kind of neat. If you haven't picked up your toy yet, be sure you're logging in to pick it up, because there's some cool stuff there. And not just, you actually open one present and get the main toy that has some choice about it, and then you open another present which adds more choices to it, which is kind of neat. So
yeah, it's just like, being a kid and you get like the main toy you wanted, and then the pack of accessories for it is wrapped up as another present. Yeah. And it's an awesome throwback. Like if you're an old fart like me, you probably have fond memories that the toy is based on. And if you're not, then you don't really have an excuse, because all the old games are on BNet now anyway. But this is a pretty cool and elaborate one, and there's a pretty simple achievement you can get from the present as well if you use it and then press the 4 key and then press the 3 key, and then you'll get an achievement. So
Cool.
You get an achievement for getting the present, then you have a new toy, and then you have an achievement for using the toy. And don't forget to buy the other toy while you're in Ironforge or Orgrimmar picking up your presents.
The Wintervale chorus book is what he's talking about. It's only 52 copper. It doesn't even look like a toy when you talk to the vendor. I actually talked to the vendor to initially get it and was like, where is it? I don't see it. Where is it? And you're like, oh, it's because it's like a green item that's in the first page in the top right kind of idea. But yeah, it's the Wintervale chorus book. It lets you sing a festive song. It only works during Wintervale. So if you want to fill out that UI panel, get yourself another toy, be sure you spend the 52 copper and get yourself a Wintervale chorus book.
Hope you got deep pockets after all your holiday shopping.
That's right.
Hope you have 52 copper left over.
Yeah. The PvP brawl for the week is Packed House. This is basically an arena battle with 15 people on either side fighting each other. It's silly and ridiculous and everything that a brawl should be. If you're someone who wants to hop in and do some Packed House stuff, you do get the Something Different quest, which rewards you with some bonus stuff for winning a Packed House. You might have to queue into a few, depending on how your side RNG's out, because it does sort of feel to a certain degree like when you mash that many people inside that small of a space, there is a certain amount of like, which team managed to target individual people first and fastest, and whoever did tends to win. So it's silly, it's fun, it's exactly what a brawl should be.
I agree. This is one of my favorites. I think if you've never done this before, you should do it just so you have the experience, just so you know what it's like, because it's just so over the top. There's so many people in this arena, and it's so hectic, and the matches tend to be over so fast. So even if you couldn't care less about arenas in general or PvP as a mode, Packed House is it's a spectacle. Like, I think you have to see it at least once in your WoW career.
Yeah. Even like just starting off inside the little like arena area and you have 15 people in there, you're like, this feels really weird. What is going on?
Yeah. Like those spaces are not designed for that many players.
All right. We also have the fireworks celebration happening. It's a very limited time event. It only runs for 12 hours. It runs from 6 p.m. Pacific time on the 31st until 6 a.m. Pacific time on the 1st. So it's just that 12-hour window that you have to hop into the game. And I think it's like every 45 minutes or something like that during that window. There are fireworks that happen inside the major cities. So you can basically head down to your major city and watch the fireworks go off. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty neat. I think it starts right at 6, and then it's like every certain period of time afterwards. It happens again, and this is always a fun thing to do on New Year's. I know my New Year's plans are going over to spend some time with family, and then I'll be coming back and playing games with friends late into the evening because my family doesn't stay up till midnight. I think most people like to roll their clocks ahead a bit and celebrate it at 9 p.m. or something like that, as opposed to midnight, which means I'll be up late playing games with friends who aren't able to get together with their family, so that'll be a good time. And this might be something we do. Maybe we start off by just heading into a major city and watching some fireworks and chatting it up with people, and yeah, it's always a good time. So
do they still shoot off in Booty Bay? I haven't done this in years.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I think Booty Bay is like the spot, man. But yeah, the key, if you have I have like young kids, and if you want them to do like a New Year's thing, but then you want to get them in bed. This is the miracle of our modern era, is you have stuff like on Netflix where their favorite cartoon characters count down and the ball drops, and you can put it on at like 8:00 at night and send them on.
Oh,
so, yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, it does a whole thing. You play it on demand, so whatever you decide it's going to be quote unquote New Year's, then you just do that. But yeah, this could be a thing. Like a lot of places do like Yule logs or something, like a Yule log stream.
Yeah,
you could kind of do like put this up on a TV or something and just go hang out in your city of choice and let the fireworks go in the background. That could be cool.
It would be neat to just put up a stream that people can watch that is just you with your UI turned off, zoomed in, watching the fireworks in a major city, and people can just play that on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I mean, you're not going to get an achievement for this. You're not going to get any anima. You're not, but this is kind of stuff that I like that they have it in the game, because it makes Azeroth feel like a real place. It makes it feel alive. This is just something that the denizens of Azeroth are doing their New Year's fireworks tonight, because of course they are. Like, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then of course, with everyone celebrating the holidays, We aren't the only ones who get time off. We don't actually know whether or not the Darkmoon Faire folks are going to be a little bit too party hard to actually have a Darkmoon Faire on the 2nd of January. We'll find out whether or not they show up to work. Right now, inside the in-game calendar, Darkmoon Faire isn't listed to start on the first Sunday of the month, which is where it normally starts, which would be the 2nd of January and run until the 8th. So it may or may not be happening. We don't know. That's when it should be happening, but it's not in the calendar. So keep your eye out in case it starts up on the 2nd and you want to get your extra, reputation and pet tokens and your fair tokens to buy mounts and all that kind of fun stuff. So Darkmoon Faire is always a good time, and it's just whether or not the workers there are actually showing up to work on the 2nd, or whether they're sleeping in for a week or two, or whatever's going on.
Yeah, just nothing on the calendar for January at all, so it's unclear. I mean, tradition would kind of dictate that it would be starting on Sunday, and the in-game calendar is not necessarily set in stone, right? Stuff can happen that isn't on the calendar. The calendar can also be wrong. It can display stuff that's not going to be happening. So we don't know, but we assume that Darkmoon Faire starts on Sunday.
Yeah. All right. We often get people writing into the show, and we don't always have time to answer questions or read the write-ins on our show, but we do this week because Blizzard's all shut down. There's not a lot going on. So we're going to take a couple of listener emails that came in. This one comes in from Alice and says, "Hi guys, so I have a group of friends that I play WoW with. The majority of us have been raiding together since Mists of Pandaria, including being on the same Mythic raid team up until Legion. Since that time, between burnout and malaise aimed at systems changes, our group of 7 lacked the drive to push Mythic and fell into just shooting for AOTC for the past couple expansions in friendly but not very good raiding guilds. I think that's fairly common. Our latest guild has fallen apart during this most recent content drought, but it had served as the impetus to get back into cutting edge raiding. Now, the hard part, guilds hate accepting groups of people onto their team due to the lack of space, of fear of niche drama developing. We are a chill group of very good raiders with no recent mythic parses, excellent heroic parses, looking for a stable long-term home of like-minded and similarly skilled people. I have been cold calling as many mythic guilds as I can, but they all seem reluctant. I get it, but how do I find a team that will absorb my team without venturing solo from feeder guilds to mid-tier cutting edge level and slowly bringing my friends in one by one? Any insights or suggestions you may have would be most appreciated. Alice on Thrall. Love the show." Thank you very much, Alice. So yeah, this is tricky because the number one hesitation that teams have with bringing even a group of 2 people, like I even know married couples who have a hard time getting onto raid teams because the fear that if you lose one, or if one doesn't finish their trial or whatever, you lose them both. That is typically what happens. And if you have 7 people who are all trying to join a raid team, that's more of a merger than a join, as you sort of mentioned. Yeah, I understand the concerns, and I know you understand the concerns. So the easiest thing to do, I would say, is look for a raid team that is either just being finding something established is going to be really hard, because a lot of established raid teams are only looking for very specific things. You want to try and find a team that's just getting stuff together, and with a similar goal. So I think for you, it's about reaching out to raid teams who aren't really high cutting edge rated, who are just sort of getting into that raiding scene, but have, like you said, like-minded strong players. So you're looking for a team that I know of one that's forming up already for next patch. That's their goal. They are basically a conglomerate of a bunch of different raid teams that people weren't having fun on, who decided let's just do our own thing, and have been putting together a mythic raid team. They would be looking for, hey, let's grab a whole bunch of people and actually just fill out a roster, because you want to be sure you have 20. So that's how you get those large numbers in without doing what you mentioned, which is the most common thing of, I'm going to join, and maybe Ed joins too, and now that we're both sort of trials and that's going well, and it seems like they're still looking for more people. Let's suggest Sarah and Joe also apply and try and get them in, and then we'll try and get more like over time, because you otherwise aren't gonna find a team that does the large acceptance. The large acceptance of 7 people tends to come from our team can't field a roster. We're looking for other people. Here's a group of 7 people who have the passion for it. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. That tends to be where you get a large absorption like that. It's very tricky, but I wish you luck with it. I hope it goes well. I would probably use WoW Progress and Warcraft logs to sort of find teams that are have goals set for next patch and who are wanting to move into the CE world for next patch. I don't think you'll find a lot of current CE teams that are like currently killing cutting edge Sylvanas who are looking for that many people. I don't think you will. Yeah,
I mean, I would defer to your expertise in this answer. This is not really the world that I live in. I mean, even in a a heroic plus team like I've been running for many years, there's like an upper limit on how many people that are like attractive to me to take at one time. Like 2 or 3 people you can kind of absorb and give spots to, but if you're talking about half a dozen people or more, it's like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna have spots. I don't really need that many healers, etc. There's usually like a tank involved, and it's like, well, between my co-tank and I, like we tank like probably 48 raid weeks a year or something together, and we don't really have a lot of other opportunities for those specs to play raid.
That's a good point. That if you are 7 range DPS, that's going to be a lot easier for you than 2 healers, a tank, and 3 DPS or 4 DPS. That will be more difficult as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I defer to you on this, and I think that your thought process is really good. I want to take it in one other direction for Alice to consider here, which is like, honestly, there's a recruiting pitch in here, and I almost sort of I read the way that you talk about your group and go, I would play with a group like that. If I was looking for a guild, like you may want to think about building your own thing, and it would take a little bit longer to get to where you want to go, right? Because you're going to have to build that roster out. You're going to have to start with heroic because you're probably not going to have 20 to start, and you have to work your way up, and it might take a couple of tiers. But over time, you might be able to build the environment that you want that you can never find to be recruited into, right? And now you're providing that kind of environment for other players that approach it the way that you do. And in my experience, people really appreciate that kind of thing, right? And those are the kind of people that are going to stick with you, through the ups and downs of the game. So that's not really an answer to your question. It's sort of like an alternative suggestion to what you're actually asking about. Yeah. But I mean, I think if you want to consider that, I think that's what we need more of, kind of in the current state of the game, is people who are willing to build up teams and communities around sort of a shared mindset, shared values, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's thankless, right? People are going to come and go as they please with your group if you build one, and you have to not take that personally. And it is what it is. But if you're having trouble, if you already have a good base of people, if you have like a tank or 2 and a couple healers and a smattering of DPS, you're already close. And if everybody enjoys playing together and has a history of playing together, when you bring in recruits in that environment, they're going to see that. It's going to be obvious that you guys are tight knit and that you have fun together. And that's an attractive place for people to play. That's how you can start kind of building up that roster to get to where you want to go and to get to the goals that you're looking at. So something to consider. It's not really what you're asking about, but I mean, this email is also, I think this email was from October, I want to say, and I do apologize for it taking so long for us to get to it, but we kind of had a lot of stuff to talk about in terms of news and whatnot. If you're still fighting this fight, if you're still looking for spots and trying to get your friends into a spot where everybody can play together and have fun, I mean, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to just start building something from scratch. And if you got a couple solid players and strong personalities to start with, then you're in better shape than a lot of people who want to get there. So something to think about.
Yeah, I like your take on being the person who's trying to find those groups of 7 people to actually form up a team. I agree that having more people out there who are willing to take leadership and take ownership of starting their own team is always attractive and always a needed thing for the community. I did that at the beginning of Warlords. Basically, at the moving into that expansion, I was like, I want to set out and do my own thing. And me and a group of I think it was 8 people or 9 people decided to start up our own team, and we eventually grew to be a team that was able to do Mythic content and was clearing multiple, like actually halfway to 3/4 of the way deep into a lot of the Mythic content, just through that expansion of starting out heroic, growing over time, finding people who are interested, actively recruiting. I mean, right now, yes, it's tricky to recruit because there's a lull in the game and what's going on with it, but it's also a time where you can recruit really strong players, because the strong players who actually do want to keep playing the game are all looking for something, right? The majority of them are all looking for a place that's going to fit their community, their aspirations, their goals. And so, yeah, there is a certain attractiveness to going, hey, you know what? I have this really good core group of friends, and if we're all willing to sort of put the work in, we can put together a pretty amazing raid team of our own. That's certainly something that's an option as well.
Yeah, if you recruit people right now, you can kind of have some confidence that they're ride or die. Right?
Yeah.
If they're still looking for raid teams and looking to push themselves and get involved with a group, then if they're doing that now, or in this era of the game, I mean, not like the week before New Year's, but I'm talking about in 915. Yeah. That's a pretty engaged and dedicated player in my mind. So that might be somebody, if their personality fit, that could definitely be the kind of person you can build a team around.
Yeah. All right. Next one comes in from Anno, who says, I was interested to hear your thoughts on what I'll call player power and the endgame loop. The last few expansions have seen WoW seemingly change its ethos regarding player power and what players are expected to do once they reach endgame territory. Additionally, the vast majority of player power was acquired via raiding or PvP, depending on player preference. However, recent expansions have seen a shift where daily content has become a key factor in powering up your characters via world quests and other daily activities which directly contribute to player power. Artifact power, Azerite power, Renown, Torghast, Korthia relics. It feels like this is an intentional move to encourage players to log in more frequently, and has led to this hamster wheel of being forced to do your daily chores so that you can do the thing you really want to do, which is raid or M+ or PvP. I would argue that this is a serious detractor from the game, both from a enjoyability perspective and a player engagement one. It also goes hand in hand with the alt unfriendliness, which has been a fairly consistent issue for years now. I firmly believe that the vast majority of the player base would not only be happy with, but would prefer less open world mandatory endgame content, and to go back to acquiring player power via raids, dungeons, PvP. I think it's a great feeling when you get your main to a point where you can choose to raid log without missing out on potential power gains. It frees you up to do other activities in game, like gathering, farming old content for transmog achievements, etc. Or play alts without feeling like you should be doing your loop without feeling like you should be doing your loop on your main to maximize your raid viability. Personally, I would be playing more if I didn't feel like I had to log in every day to do my loop on my main. I think Blizzard has made an amazing game, and they don't need to try and coerce most of us into logging in multiple times a week. And in doing so, they have actually frustrated a lot of people who don't want to / have the time to keep up with this new endgame meta. As a background, I'm a Mythic progression raider, work full-time, and have 2 kids. Gone are the days where I can log in for a few hours a day, every day. And I admit, I find it quite frustrating at the end of the day to feel like I should log in and farm Stygia or Codex Rep or AP, whether I want to or not. And I would wager that a large percentage of the now aging WoW player base is in the same boat. It makes playing WoW feel like a chore a lot of the days, rather than something I am excited to do. I am interested in hearing your thoughts, and I fully understand / expect a difference of opinion. Thanks for making such an awesome show. Proud patron, and love hearing your thoughts on the game every week. Well, thank you very much, Anno, for writing in. And this is definitely an opinion that I know a lot of people share. and I know a lot of people who disagree with. So it's that interesting. This is that interesting parallel, because a lot of people make the argument of, well, you use words like should, because you understand, and you use it inside quotations in your letter, because you understand that this is choice. And that's the thing that the other side always pushes, is you don't have to do this loop. You don't need to do these things. You're choosing to do this loop on your main. And I always feel like I'm more in your camp of, I want to feel as viable and ready and like I've done everything I can for a raid team and for my team and for my character to be as powerful as it can be, to be as prepared as I can going into Mythic, right? Like that's where I want to be. And so the should is something I can relate to, right? We were just talking about this earlier, of that feeling of like, if I don't log into the game and do these things, I am letting myself down, right? Like I will actually feel bad that I have missed out on an opportunity to gain player power, and I can't get that opportunity back, right? Like I by taking one day off or missing 3 world quests, I have let myself down, right? Like that is the mentality that you can get into very easily with this. And so, yes, the current state of the game right now, today, during today's age, is much less of that. You don't feel that as much. There's a lot less ways to gain character power. Yes, there's sockets involved. Yes, there's things like that, but they're all very accessible now. You can get sockets just by doing Torghast a few times for some cinders, and then going and buying a socket off of the vendor that you need revered reputation to get, which you probably have by now if you've logged in even a day a week to do some stuff inside Korthia. Because it's not even Codex rep, it's the other rep that you just get from like everything. So that isn't a restriction. And then upgrading your conduits is something where, yes, it is Codex based, and yes, you got to put a little bit more effort into that, but those upgrades are not very substantial. They're something that are there. They're not huge giant leaps for you to upgrade conduits. So this state of the game right now is probably the most relaxed it's been for a Mythic Raider that it has been in a long time. And it sounds like 9.2 is going to continue to be a fairly relaxed experience for Mythic Raiders, based off of the, outside of completing the main storyline quest, there isn't a grind that increases your character power. So I do feel like Blizzard is sort of recognizing what you're describing, and recognizing that this is not a direction they want to continue to take the game in, and are choosing to sort of eke back some of that player power acquisition from a grind, some of that reputation required to be able to buy something that is required for a Mythic Raider to be ready for Mythic content. And I used required a few times in there, but all those requireds would be inside quotations because they're not actually required. It is a decision that we are all making. And so I acknowledge that again. I feel your plight. I think the game wouldn't be better, though, if the best way to acquire power was always raids, dungeons, and PvP. I think it makes the world much less diverse. I think crafting is something that I've always advocated for being something that's more powerful. I think being able to craft items and upgrade those items throughout an expansion was a great concept that Shadowlands had that just really fell flat on execution. I don't think you can craft high enough item level pieces. I think some of the crafting is very restricted, particularly around legendaries. It's very expensive. And so I think that's unfortunate. I think it would have been great to go, hey, you know what? If you're a blacksmith, you can choose to craft. Let's go way back to classic days of being a shield smith or a weaponsmith or an axe mastery or a sword mastery, like those sorts of back in the day crafting stuff. And go, hey, you know what? Top of the expansion, you on your blacksmith, you can choose to craft a shield, craft a sword, or craft pants or whatever it is. And depending on which one you choose, that is the one that you're going to sort of like be set on for this patch, right? Next patch, you can choose another one or choose to continue improving this one. And for that patch, you basically, so now you have your content cycle. So when a patch comes out, we obviously look at raid gear. If you're a Mythic Raider, go, hey, there's pants in here I really want, so I'm not going to choose pants for my, blacksmithing mastery. I'll choose shield because there's no real easy access shield, and this one kind of sucks, and I want to be able to put my own stats on it. And then you upgrade it, and it goes all the way up to Mythic quality. And I don't mean Mythic quality I mean last two boss Mythic quality. Like it's that extra eye level. That's where that crafting item goes, and you can farm those materials. The materials come from raid and come from PvP and come from quests, and you can only get so many a week, so you can only upgrade so many a week. But that's an item that you can push and get to that item level, I think would be amazing. So I don't want to rule crafting out. I don't think everything should be player power based off raids and dungeons. Yes, you could acquire materials from raids and dungeons, but you could also acquire them from, doing world quests or whatever else it is, as long as you hit that cap for the week, similar to hitting a Valor cap. I think that'd be a great system for crafting. And I think they need to explore that. I really do. I think that's a very important thing to explore. I also have always advocated for reputation rewards to be better. If you're someone who does grind reputations, the rewards at the end of the tier shouldn't be like Mythic 0 level loot. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't even be normal raid level loot. It should be at least heroic level loot. If you get exalted with a reputation, let me buy heroic quality boots. Like, let me buy that. Why? What's the problem with doing that? I've put the time in to grind out this reputation all the way up to its max level. I think it's absolutely fine if someone puts that much effort into it to be able to feel like they accomplished something. If you have to spend all of those, whatever the marks are for your covenants that you have to spend, you get like one a day from doing your emissary, and then your calling, and then you get a few of them from doing your anima conductor quests. If you have to spend those to buy gear, that should be decent gear that you're spending. It's double currency required. It's anima plus the other currency. That should be decent gear as well. And I have zero issue with those things being ways to acquire player power, because it actually requires people to play the game to a more than one-time event extent. And what I mean by that is, I don't feel like world quest rewards, mission table rewards, random drops from rares in the world should be pieces of gear that you wear over top of normal heroic gear. That should be gear that gets you ready for doing normal and heroic. If you want to get normal and heroic quality gear, you should have to put more effort into the game than I went out and completed a world quest. That to me is unreasonable as far as an expectation goes. But if you want to grind reputation up to exalted, if you want to work on crafting an item and you get it from, you get materials from calling bags or from doing dungeons or whatever it is, and you craft together this really nice item, those things should be on par or better than that normal heroic quality raid gear. So I agree with you that I feel like the loop right now in the game has up until this point has very much been very onerous on Mythic Raiders to grind as hard as you possibly can, to be as prepared as you possibly can, and there's a lot of things to grind. I have hope that in 9.2 they're reducing that grind, and we're going to see that fall back a bit. And I am hopeful that they will take the advice that I give and make the player power you can acquire from world quests and whatever less. I think it's actually at a pretty good point right now, where you, over time, upgrading your renown, you upgrade your world quest rewards, which meant you had to play the game to upgrade your renown, which meant you then got 213 eye level gear, which I think is fine. And they look at things like professions, and they look at things like reputation based gear, and they increase those to represent the effort that was required to accomplish those things. So I'm hopeful of that.
Yeah, in terms of Anno's point here, I sort of agree. I agree for the sake of the health of the game and the player base that they should probably move away from this kind of stuff. As a player, I like having it, but I mean, the more time goes on, the fewer people I know that can be bothered to engage with stuff like this.
Right.
I do think in Shadowlands, like there's just so many problems because the Covenant system being a nested mass of systems is a huge mess.
Yeah.
It is not, to me, it's not fun. It doesn't feel rewarding. It doesn't really feel like I'm powering up my character. It feels like a bunch of stuff that the game is making me collect in order to progress these barriers that don't really need to be there. That's basically, that sort of sums up how I felt about it from the beginning. And now it's just a thing that I checked off a list and I never think about again. So it didn't engage me when I was doing it, other than it was stuff that I felt like I needed to do. And it doesn't continue to provide benefit to me, or at least not in a way that is tangible. Like, obviously I have a soulbind and I have conduits and they do stuff, but they could just do stuff. That stuff could be done as a result of class or spec design or, itemization. I do think in terms of Shadowlands, if you had a more streamlined system where Anima was the big prize, you could collect a certain amount of anima a week, and with a weekly catch-up mechanic like we see with other things like valor or conquest, stuff like that, where if you miss last week's anima cap, well, guess what, you can get this week's anima cap and last week's anima cap this week. Imagine if instead of feeding that anima into a reservoir that you were then using to like buy cosmetics with and or unlocking upgrade features that realistically could have either already been there or been like quest progression rewards. What if you were feeding that anima into the Forge of Bonds, similar to like Legion, and as you powered up the Forge of Bonds, that would unlock and rank up all the conduits and the conduit slots, empower the conduit slots. And then maybe at the other end, it's still currency that you can use. Like you deposit it in there, and then it powers you up, and then you have this currency to go buy the shoulder Mog in the 4 different colors, right? Like, I feel like there are so many ideas in Shadowlands that are like 15 degrees off of a good gameplay implementation.
Yes.
And I mean, imagine if you're getting anima from everything you do, even still to this day, everything you do, you get anima. Imagine you're feeding it into the system that is, unlocking all your conduits, powering all them up to relevance and beyond for whatever difficulty that you're doing. Like, I think it would be more engaging and fun to people. I do think that there's a way that you can have these types of systems in the game where, yes, you can get direct character power from outdoor solo content without it being what we've seen to, bad extremes in early BFA, for example. But I also recognize that a lot of players really don't want it, and I think those of us that like it can probably live without it. So I don't know. I mean, I really wouldn't be against it. I do like your suggestion that we shouldn't entirely tie all character power to endgame PvE or PvP content, and that there should be other avenues. Not everybody wants to raid. Not everybody wants to PvP. I'm not saying that those players should have access to the same like power ceiling as players that do that stuff, but they should also have cool stuff to do, and they should have like cool items that they can have that make the stuff that they do play more fun to play because they have cool powers. I think there's always room for that stuff. Again, like the crafting stuff in Shadowlands is almost good. There's cool stuff about it, but then it veers off into this weird design land where nobody's actually happy with it. When, again, like we're talking about this, I feel like a lot on this episode, but going back to like the original Shadowlands pitches to us, the customer at BlizzCon 2019, it was like craftable legendaries. It sounds awesome. Like you can target the piece that you want and then you make it and then you just have this cool item that you made. Like that sounds awesome. Did anybody think it was awesome once we actually got to play with it? Like the pitch is great. Yeah. The implementation is buried in these weird systems and currencies. The caveats of like, well, you have to grind like an obscene amount of materials in order to be able to make the legendary in the first place. Like it's just all got buried under these layers of unfunness when the kernel of the idea is really fun and really fits the kind of RPG gameplay that I think a lot of players want, right? This kind of goal that you're chasing. I'm not saying that you should be able to make your own rank 6 legendary in like, I don't know, a reset, right? Or something. Like it should be something you invest in, but yeah, and carry forward, power it up. It should be part of your character. So I don't know. I have kind of mixed feelings about Ano's email here, but I tend to agree with the sentiment overall, even though it's not really my preference for playstyle. I think they're just going against the grain too much, from a development standpoint with what players really want out of the game. And I think it's okay to have, power progression outside of endgame PvE, PvP, but it needs to be more streamlined than what we've seen in recent expansions. It should be tied to like, particular quest lines or something that's really directed and completable, and something that is engaging to the player, not just like, well, go do whatever you want and then fill up this anima reservoir and then figure out some other thing you want to do with it that eventually, once you unlock all this, it gets you to some other point in time where you now have to do these other things in order to get the end result you actually want. Like it just didn't work out this time. Well, I'm expecting the stuff to be significantly streamlined going forward, and I think in 9.2 you're already seeing that. I mean, 9.1.5, the changes to Archivist Codex, just the changes overall to Korthia, I think speak to it a lot. They streamlined it basically as much as they could without, just ripping the entire system out in a patch and redoing it. And I think what we've seen in the plan for 9.2 is it speaks very well to this, where it's like, here is all of this content that is available to you, but you are not beholden to some daily or weekly routine of engaging with it in order to stay at par with your raid team. So I think there's room for all different flavors of this kind of stuff in WoW. I think Shadowlands is just it's a weird particular thing where nothing hit. They tried to fix problems that they recognized in the previous 2 expansions with these systems, and instead of solving any of them, they just found a whole bunch of other different problems to explore.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we are where we are with this game, but I do I will remain hopeful, as we've sort of been talking about through this whole episode, about what's coming up the next patch, because it really feels like they're listening to players, and it really feels like they're tying those things in well. But I can't help but agree with Shadowlands has been system on top of system on top of system on top of system that just doesn't. There's so many ways they could have streamlined that or made it work better. It always harkens back to some of the conversations we've had with devs where we hear about the process and the process they go through, where developers come up with an idea that they think is really cool for the expansion, and they sort of bring those ideas to a lead, and that lead sort of looks at a way of how to fit that cool idea into the game for this expansion, where it'll actually fit how that system might work well. And it feels like they had all these great ideas that came together and weren't able to put the pieces together properly. They had a lot of round peg, square hole problems that they just didn't. They just started stacking them, so it got it's the Tetris effect, where it just went up really, really high as opposed to clearing the lines like you're supposed to do. So like that to me is what we're suffering from, and I really do hope that based off of what we're seeing so far with 9.2, that not only is 9.2 strong, but that they've taken the lessons they've learned from this and really applied them to the next expansion, and we'll see something much more streamlined and smooth that has much less systems that are active systems and much more passive systems that work very well for players. So yeah, hopefully we will see. Okay, last email comes in from Skull Masher or Skull Smasher, who says, like many, I started playing WoW in TBC. I took a break about a month before Shadowlands launched and only started playing again about 2 months ago. I don't have a lot of time to play nowadays, and I'm only about 28 or so with my Covenant, meaning renown-wise. I only make about 30 to 50 anima a day, and I'm not sure what I am doing wrong. I've not finished the quests, of course. I still have the Horn of Odin attached to my back. I am super discouraged when I see all the armor around me that I want, as far as transmogs and mounts that cost thousands upon thousands of anima, in addition to grateful offerings. That's the currency I was talking about earlier that I couldn't remember, so thank you for putting that in your email. Grateful offerings, or whatever they are called for. Of course, I have like maybe 20 of them. So my question is, what am I doing wrong, and what should I be doing? It's difficult to even log in to play when I see my anima reservoir at like, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60, when I have loved playing WoW for all these years. And even though I love Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2, I still think of WoW as the superior game. It's kind of causing me to be so discouraged and disconnected that I don't even bother when, at my current rate, it's going to take me about 37 years to even earn enough anima to buy an armor set. Please help a WoW brother out. Merry Christmas and Happy Boxing Day, whatever that is, and have a much better 2022 than 2020-2021 has been. Skull Smasher, 60 Meghar Orc DK on Wormcrest Accord. All right, so first and foremost, Boxing Day is the sales day that happens right after Christmas in Britain and Canada. It might also happen in Australia. I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked that one up. But yes, the day after Christmas, the 26th of December, is a day where basically we have our Black Friday sales kind of concept. They liquidate all of the extra stock that they have on things. So often, if you didn't get something for Christmas that you really wanted, the day after Christmas, you can go out and buy it, and you'll buy it at a greatly reduced price. We have those lineups that go around the block at stores with people waiting to get in, and the rush flash sales that happen. All that's the same concept as your Black Friday that they have in the US. So that's what Boxing Day is. It doesn't really have like a big celebratory thing. It's a, hey, go spend a bunch of money because you just spent a bunch of money over the holidays, or you just got a bunch of money over the holidays from your grandmother who was really kind and gave you a bunch of money. So go spend that on something that's a big reduced rate.
Please get this inventory we didn't sell before Christmas out of our stores. Thank you.
Yeah. And, it makes room for the 2022 stuff, and you get rid of all the 2021 stuff. That is the concept behind what they're doing. So I hope that answers your question. All right, back to the World of Warcraft stuff.
Okay, we'll call that a show.
Exactly. No. All right. Okay, so as far as how to get anima and what to do with anima, I mean, first and foremost, you got to finish the quests. Like, you have to finish your Covenant campaign quests. They're going to get you thousands of anima just doing those quests because they give you thousands of anima. They're not going to give you a lot of grateful offerings. Grateful offerings you're going to earn through upgrading your anima conductor. And as you upgrade your anima conductor, which costs you anima to do, you then unlock more quests and more buffs and more rares that you can kill within your Covenant zone, which when you complete those particular ones will reward you with more of those grateful offerings. They have increased the rate at which you get grateful offerings, so you can also get them from your callings as well, and it does still take a long time. The concept for how the systems were designed for this expansion wasn't for you to be able to switch covenants, period. It just wasn't. That wasn't something that was on their plan when they initially designed all these systems. So there is a certain amount of, hey, we're trying to ease the fact that we didn't design the game to do this for the player base, because now people are swapping around covenants and they actually want to be able to spend grateful offerings to buy all of the different things for all of the different covenants, and you need tens of thousands of them to be able to do that. I know I had 800 or 900 of them, and I basically spent all of those on Night Fae, and I now have barely any left. But I bought out everything that Night Fae had, and so I have everything that they had, and that took me basically until 9.1.5 to sort of accomplish that goal of doing things with regular play. So it is a huge task to accomplish that for a Covenant. So I do feel like there probably is something Blizzard could do to sort of address that issue with grateful offerings. Now, as far as anima goes, once you've completed doing your Covenant campaign quests, it basically the renown that you're earning increases the rewards that you get from all of your world quests. So the more time you can put into actually just doing those Covenant campaign quests, finishing those out, and then earning renown, the more anima you're going to get on a regular basis. It's absolutely exponential. And some of the buffs are huge. You get to the point where you're earning 500 anima from doing a world quest. You're talking about only having 50 or 60. When you're early on in that campaign, you said that you were 28 in your Covenant campaign. There are 80 renown levels. So by the time you get up to 80 renown, you're earning thousands upon thousands. I earn probably 5,000 to 6,000 anima a day. And that's not doing a grind. That's doing the world quests that have anima in them, is sort of what you're looking at. So I would just emphasize finishing your Covenant campaign, getting more renown. And so there's lots of ways to get renown. You can get renown from doing dungeons, from doing raids like LFR, that kind of stuff. Torghast is the number one way that I got renown, was just going out and running Torghast runs. You can run low runs, you can run, 5s or 6s or whatever, and there's a chance to get a renown at the end of them, and you get currency towards crafting your legendaries and that kind of stuff, if that's something you want to do. So that's an option. You also get them from callings, so just be sure you're doing your callings. If you've been doing your callings every week, so every 3 days, you log in and do your 3 callings, that's 3 renown, which means you get 6 renown a week. So by the time you hit that 4-week mark, let's say you also did a couple LFR bosses, you're going to be getting 15, 16 renown just from that month that you did it. And that's with minimal play. That's maybe I don't know, less than 30 minutes every 3 days. That's easy play time that you can throw in there. So I think that's where you're feeling demotivated, is you want to be able to just pop in and play the game at max level and have high gear. If that's what you're sort of used to doing, or how you sort of left off when you stopped playing, was you were in a really good spot gear wise. I feel like that's what you're feeling. Now I want to also emphasize, you say that you took a break a month before Shadowlands launched, right? So you were at the end of BFA, where BFA was the loot and gear expansion. And when you're at the end of BFA and they're just throwing gear at you everywhere, I can certainly understand coming in and feeling like it's a bit of a slog in Shadowlands, because they specifically came into Shadowlands with the mentality of, we need to scale this back a bit. That said, I really feel like you're maybe 5 or 6 hours of playtime dedicated towards the questing and grinding renown away from feeling much better about the game. Like much, much better about the game. That Covenant campaign won't take you a long time to get through. And once you actually start putting some effort into gaining renown and gaining those unlocks, you'll see those quests just like level up as far as the anima you're getting. And you'll go, okay, I get it now. This is what I've been missing that you talk about, is just getting that renown rolling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the issue here for you is that you are a bit focused on the trees when you need to be looking at the forest. Yes, there's a ton of stuff to buy with anima, but that's sort of the icing, and you need to bake the rest of the cake first. So, yeah, you need to be Renown 80. You need to be done with your Covenant campaign, both the 9.0 and 9.1 campaigns. And even though there is cool looking stuff for your character to wear or ride on or hang out with, your anima should be going into your sanctum upgrades first and foremost. Even though those are kind of big chunks of anima, one at a time to get the stuff powered up, there's a multiplier. The more of those unlocks that you have, the more anima you will get from all sources. So if I were in your spot, my number one goal would be, finishing up Covenant campaign and then doing whatever was necessary to get to Renown 80. And just banking anima, not really spending it on anything unless I hit enough to get sanctum upgrades. Buy out all the sanctum upgrades, even the ones that aren't particularly sexy or interesting. And then now you have all of the pieces in place. All the multipliers are rolling. And now if you really want to go get a mount or whatever, yeah, you can sort of direct your play towards anima world quests, the weeklies and stuff that give a bunch of anima, the other events that give anima, all the other stuff you can do. And now you can invest time directly into getting those rewards that you want pretty quickly, honestly. It's a bit convoluted. This sort of ties into what we were just talking about. These are the systems you have to unravel in order to actually achieve this end. But yeah, to me, via this email, it sounds like you just haven't put enough time into the one-time only stuff yet, and you need to focus on that first. And then the anima is just going to flow. You're going to be drowning in anima, and then you'll be able to buy everything that you want. You could target the stuff you really want and get that pretty quickly, and then you can buy all the incidental pieces if you want to keep going without too much trouble, because you're going to get, the anima's out there for you to get. You're going to get it passively. If you seek it out, you're going to get a ton of it. But yeah, if you're in the middle of the quest campaigns and you're sitting, sitting at Renown 28. This email's from a couple weeks ago, so hopefully you got a little bit more. But yeah, got to get that Renown up. You got to meet the game where it is and do what it asks you to do. And just don't forget those sanctum upgrades, because then it'll really start rolling in.
Yeah, as a motivator, there was so much anima that people could gain that people were hitting the cap and ran out of things to spend anima on. At one point, Jason was spending anima to buy gear to vendor the gear because he literally had nothing else he could spend anima on.
I was hard capped, and it's like, I need the bag space. Yeah, they changed all that now, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, and that was in. Was that 9.1 or was it 9.0?
It was 9.1.
That was with, all the sanctum upgrades and all the multipliers I was just talking about. And it's just like, okay, well, doing a daily loop means that, I have more anima than I literally know what to do with.
Yeah. So it happens. Like you put the effort into those particular things in that path, and you will definitely hit that point where you're just swimming in anima regularly. Obviously, there's going to be catch up because there's a lot of stuff you want to buy, but you can do it. It's absolutely possible to do.
I will say, I don't think the game does a great job of pointing you in these directions.
Yeah.
And I don't think they make it clear how some of these things work and where these multipliers lie. These are like in the case of the sanctum upgrades, that was a hot fix that they pushed in 9.0, I believe. That was like, hey, if you bought all, for every upgrade you buy, you get whatever it is, 15% more anima or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what it is, but like, I don't think that's reflected in the game anywhere. No NPC is going to tell you to do that. You're not going to get some kind of UI toast that's like, hey, do this if you want more anima. It sort of speaks to the problem of the convoluted systems in Shadowlands. And I don't think it's like super player facing, player friendly how this stuff works. And especially if you haven't put like a lot of time in, or you've been in and out with Shadowlands, then it's going to be real confusing if you haven't, kind of been there for all the progression steps of like, hey, we don't get enough anima Blizzard, and then all the stuff that changed since we started having that conversation last year. So hopefully that helps. I mean, just check all that stuff off your list, and then you'll be anima shopping in no time.
Yeah. All right, with that, we're going to play a quick sounder for our patrons, and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Celian, Greg, Kapawi, Mibble the Mighty, and Shorel. Thank you. This sounder is for you. That's right, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. No new patrons this week, but a big thanks to all of our patrons for a great 2021. Of course, we're going to have event scheduling in January coming up, so be sure you're thinking of your questions for that. We're going to be getting lots more PTR news and other WoW news happening in the first week of January. I expect we'll probably actually have a large chunk of stuff that comes out of Blizzard in that first week, so we'll see what happens there. That you might want to have some questions lined up for. Be sure you write them down, or you submit them through our Discord or through Patreon so we can pick those up. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone who supported the show. It means a lot to us, and it's, as much as this is sort of been a downtime for World of Warcraft, it's been fantastic that our patrons have stayed engaged and are still there and still having the conversation or letting us know how they're doing.
Absolutely. And I think we've had some really great patron call-in shows in this weird time. The last 6 months have been really, I mean, let's be honest, it's been kind of terrible doing, Blizzard game content in the last 6 months or so. And I think you can see how many people just stopped. That kind of speaks to that. And I don't blame anybody for stopping. I think you should do whatever feels correct and good and right to you. But for us, it didn't feel like a thing that we should stop doing, because we felt like we could have conversations in a bit of a nuanced way with our audience, and I think the audience has certainly proved me right on that. I think we've had some great conversations about it. Some people brought some great perspective to it. To people that hang out in our Discord or people that listen to the call-in shows or whatever. It's been really awesome. So thank you all, and looking forward to cool game news in 2022, and hopefully talking about good vibes around the game, and hopefully continually improving conditions for the people making it.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, and we'll happily jump into 2022, and hopefully everything it's just a better year for everything. I know we said that about 2021. But hopefully 2022 is just a better year for everything. We will find
out. Turn that corner at some point.
At some point, we got to pull out of the downward spiral. All right. If you folks have enjoyed this episode of The Starting Zone, consider heading on over to our iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. They really help out our show, and we love reading reviews from our listeners. This one comes in from Norai in the Netherlands, who says, "Positive feeling in a toxic WoW time. I love this podcast for some years now. In a time people mainly complain about the game, this podcast provides me with a realistic view of what is happening inside and out of the game. Great talk through and lovely fun facts about the events for coming weeks. Regards, Narai, Drene, EU." Well, thank you so much for leaving us that 5-star. I love getting reviews from people outside of North America, because it's always neat to see just how far the show reaches. And I'm glad we can help provide that for you, that podcast that is a realistic view. It isn't just us complaining about the game, and it really gives you that fix every week that you need. So thanks very much for listening.
Absolutely. It's Netherlands checking in. That's really cool. It's just cool how global of a thing World of Warcraft is. It's one big global family of players, and it's cool to have that kind of reflected in our community and people that check out the show and engage with with us and with other listeners and stuff. So, yeah, thanks for writing in. And it's kind of funny because earlier this year we were catching heat from people for being so negative. I mean, I do feel like I think we've been rightfully down on the game of late, whereas Legion and BFA, I think both you and I were a lot more positive on the game in general. I mean, Legion was my favorite, of course, and I think both you and I like BFA better than the average bear.
Yeah.
Like we kind of like that expansion for warts and all. And Shadowlands, we've kind of poo-pooed stuff a bit more, and when obviously we're both playing less. And we caught a fair share of heat this year for slagging on the game and complaining about it. And all I can say is, when it comes to stuff like that, we're just going to be honest. The show's going to reflect our opinions and experiences in the game and nothing else. We're not going to recap what somebody else's opinion was on some other thing that they made. And I'm not going to come on here and lie to you. I'm going to tell you what I did in WoW last week and how I felt about it and what I'm looking forward to and what I'm dreading. And that's just the way it's always going to be. And if it's ever not that, then I just won't be on the show anymore. Right. Like, we're just going to tell it like it is. And there's room for nuance. There's always going to be stuff I like and dislike about WoW. There always has been, and that's never going to change. I still think WoW's a pretty damn cool video game, and I still have fun playing it. And there's just levels of things. Sometimes I have more fun than other times, and I think a skill that I'm trying to learn is like understanding where my kind of boundaries are and like what is fun to me, and focusing on that, and not forcing myself into patterns that are like unfun or ultimately unproductive. So, I mean, it was great to see this review, and that's what it made me think of, because we did hear a bunch of that earlier this year about how the show had turned so negative against WoW, and I don't feel like it's like that. I feel like it's nuanced, and that there are good and bad things, and we're going to let you know how we feel about them.
Yeah, no, it's certainly been a bit of a year, and I think that both of us have, as you said, been playing the game a little bit less lately, and that just is reflective of the WoW experience. And I think that's what people listen to the show for. They want the information that we have to share about the game, but they also want to know sort of how we are feeling about it and how we are enjoying it. And I will always put an honest perspective on my experience of the game, and I'll always try and find something that excites me before I do the show. I find before I do this show, I'm always looking for, what is it that I want to talk about this week that I think is cool and exciting. And last week was the 100% more Legion rep. Like, that was just really wicked to me that was a thing that we could do, right? I'm always going to try and find those things before I come on here, and I'm always going to try and come at it from a positive perspective. But I do have to be honest when something's happening or in around the game that's I need to rant on for a little bit, or I need to point out as a problem. I'm happy to do it, and I think that criticism goes a long way. I mean, even when we were talking with Morgan Day and we mentioned the not having a catch up for Covenant ability conduits, or just for conduits in general, and then suddenly that's put into the game based off of that feedback. And I think that's something where if we aren't giving that kind of criticism or feedback, those opportunities or moments might not happen. And so I think it's important that we are able to do that on the show. And, hopefully we don't do that so often that it's viewed as a negative thing as opposed to constructive criticism,
Yeah. I mean, there are going to be things that just kind of rub us the wrong way, and it's kind of hard not to be negative about that. There's going to be things that we really like that most people don't like. Go back and listen to some Legionary shows about how much I like the random legendary system. I honestly loved it, and I thought it was a great addition to the game, and people thought I was, from another planet. So, I mean, you never know, but that's what you're going to get, is whatever it is that we're actually doing week in and week out.
Yeah, I was going to say, or the opposite of that, where everyone was excited that we weren't going to have an artifact power grind. And me and you were both like, I'm really worried about not having an artifact power grind.
Yeah, like, this is actually really bad news while everyone's cheering in the hall at BlizzCon.
Yeah. All right, anyways, that's going to wrap up episode 496 of The Starting Zone. Man, we're catching up on 500 fast. It'll be sometime in the next month. Yeah. If you'd like to check out the show, notes for this episode, or leave us a comment on the show, head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com, and we'll get to it as soon as we can. Obviously, some of these were a couple months old, but I think it's exciting that we managed to get them on the show, and hopefully the answers help those people out. Or, maybe just our answers help someone else out who had a similar question. You can also reach out to us on Twitter, or as I said, in our Discord. If you go to startingzone.com/discord, you can click on the button and join our Discord there. You can also get your hands on some TSC gear over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/the starting zone. They often have a lot of sales going on. There's a lot of 35%, 40% off sales happening over the holidays. I think a lot of those are wrapping up now, but feel free to check it out. They happen pretty often. You can get some t-shirts and mugs and stickers and masks and all sorts of fun stuff over there. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
One thing I want to point out about the TeePublic sales is it is officially too late for Wintervale 2021. You missed your window. But if you order soon, you can get it for Wintervale 2022. You can find me over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, always talking whatever I'm doing in and around WoW, other stuff, whatever I got going on. So come say hi.
Cool. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.